if you rank all the factors that attribute to your success on your store, I think product is the biggest, and the second one is creative. How your store looks, of what type of store you're using, it's far less important than what products you're selling and how you're selling them.
Oh, so tell me about your story. How did you get into e-com? How old are you? And tell me a bit about yourself, Thomas.
Yeah, so I started 4 years ago. Started just dropshipping Facebook ads like everyone else. And late 2018, I think I started the first ads in December. Then I had a small break in January because of Chinese New Year. And then in February 2019, that's when I found my first profitable products. And like, I think 1 month later, I quit my job. I just kept doubling my revenue in 2019 up until I was like at, I think, 160K in a month. Yeah, so 2019 hit my first million. Things were doing all right. I mean, of course, looking back, there's always things that you can do better, especially when you're just starting out, but things are doing all right. And of course, also in 2019, I also got some trouble with Facebook ads already. You know, you probably heard of this, like people getting blocked on Facebook. So 2020, at the start of the year, I had like a small break because dropshipping, it's not necessarily my passion. So I was looking like, what am I going to do? I see that it's getting more inconsistent, getting more blocks. You know, I'm dependent on Facebook. So I think around March, I started getting into Pinterest ads, and that took quite a while before it started to take off. But in August, maybe late July, I got some Pinterest ads working. And then in October, or maybe even a little bit before that, Facebook had the big update where they started banning everyone. So that's when I had to switch to Pinterest. And from then till now, I've just been consistently running ads on Pinterest. And of course, also advertise on other platforms. But yeah, that's kind of the story of how I got into the Pinterest ads.
Got it. So you've been running Pinterest ads since 2020, is that correct? Did you say?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And over the last 2 years, where has been your biggest ad spend gone to?
On Pinterest, definitely.
And then have you touched like Snapchat, Google AdWords, TikTok? What are your thoughts on the other platforms?
I've tried everything. Not everything like I've done Pinterest, but we're also running TikTok ads right now. Tried Snapchat a couple times, but never really worked. Maybe some small successes, but not like Facebook ads or TikTok or Pinterest. And since 2020, I've tried Facebook again as well, but it's just very inconsistent. Like, for example, we just got blocked on my personal account where I advertise not for dropshipping, but just for myself, for my personal brand. It also gets blocked, so everything gets banned. So it's very, very inconsistent for me, at least.
Yeah, I remember I went hard on Facebook in 2018 and I lost my personal Facebook profile. It was one where I grew up with it. I had all my photos, all my friends. I had like 600 friends and I lost that account. And every time I created a new Andy My account, it kept getting banned again and again. And I think I waited like 2-3 years and now I have an Andy My Facebook account again. But it's just so like inconsistent, risky, and not reliable.
Yeah, that like you actually lost your personal account, or was it just banned? Yeah, I've heard a couple stories like that as well. It doesn't happen a lot. I think especially now they just ban your business account. But yeah, it's crazy at Facebook.
Second to Pinterest would be TikTok. Do you spend much time on TikTok, or is it still majority Pinterest for you?
For me, we focus more on Pinterest. Maybe the last months, 40% TikTok, 60% Pinterest. So we do put a lot of time into Pinterest or TikTok, but TikTok, it's very, very intense, very time consuming, very inconsistent. You get like great results the first day, and then the next day it can be very bad, which can also happen on Pinterest. But then over a long time, usually Pinterest starts to get more consistent, whereas with TikTok, it just sort of dies out really quick. So it's very intense. You have to test a lot of creatives. You have to constantly create new campaigns. So I'm not too focused on TikTok myself. I have someone in my team that runs the TikTok ads mostly. And yeah, it's just a full-time job running TikTok ads.
Talking about Pinterest, I've noticed that as well. Like I set up a few campaigns. Day 1, 2, 3, the CPMs might be around, say, $5, $4. And then by the sort of 5th and 6th days, the CPM sort of starts dropping from 5 down to 4, down to 3, down to 2. Same with the cost per click. It would start at like, say, 10 cent, and it'll go down to 8, 7, and it's like down to 3 or 2 cent. So Pinterest is one of the first platforms that seems to get better over time. Like even Facebook doesn't optimize that well. Facebook, the results you get within the first $5 to $10, that's most likely gonna be either the same or worse over time. But Pinterest seems to improve.
Yeah, and especially the first weeks. I mean, at some point, of course, the performance is going to drop if you don't change anything. Like if you run a campaign, of course, it's going to die out. But from all platforms, I think Pinterest is the most consistent, and you can run a single campaign for the longest. Of course, depends on what budget. But yeah, if you start a campaign, the first couple days are probably not going to be very good. So yeah, it really needs time to optimize, and you'll see that, at least I see this a lot. We start a campaign, day 1, click-through rate might be 0.5%, and the next day it's at 1%. So it really needs time to optimize, and it's very important to keep that in mind if you run Pinterest ads, because a lot of people, they come from TikTok, for example, and they expect good results in the first day. Not very likely on Pinterest unless you have a really good product or ad.
If there's like a product, let's say the average product has a break-even point of $20, $25, how long would you let it run on Pinterest before killing it?
Depends on what data we get. So like the sort of testing process, there's no one simple blueprint, because we look at a lot of different KPIs, and usually we let every product run for at least 3 days. So we use a very low budget on Pinterest. We run for at least 3 days, and then I would say on average maybe 30% of the products that we test get killed after 3 days, and then the remaining 70%, it gets optimized, and we let it run for another 3 or 4 days. So it's running for a week, then we kill another maybe 50% of what's left, and then we slowly sort of filter out the products that are doing well, or the campaigns. Depends, like if you're dropshipping for a brand, it's just campaigns and ads. But yeah, so we let it run for on average 1 to 2 weeks before we take action. And then of course there's some products that start to do very well from right at the start, which are usually the very big winners. Like if you find a product that's immediately very profitable on Pinterest, that's a very good sign. Of course, then we scale it after 3 days already, but usually let it run for at least 1 or 2 weeks.
Is it normal to see Pinterest products not get too many add to carts in the very beginning, or even zero purchases? Because I have a campaign, I think maybe we let it run at $3 a day, and it's like maybe at $20. So it's been 7 days, and it has like 1 add to cart, 0 purchases, but the cost per click is going down, the CPM is going down, CTR is going up, but we've still only got 1 add to cart and 0 conversions. What would that mean?
Yeah, so of course, because traffic is a lot cheaper, the conversion rate is also lower on average. That makes sense. But it doesn't matter, because if the traffic is a lot cheaper, you still can be very profitable. But yeah, on Pinterest, what it means if your add to cart rate is low is probably that your offer is not interesting enough for people that visit your page. So when you start an ad, first Pinterest needs to figure out what's the right audience and what's like the warm audience that's going to buy your product. But after a couple of days, they should have a pretty good idea. Of course, this is all algorithm, so it's very maybe difficult to explain, but they just look at several KPIs to determine what would be a very good audience and what people are likely to buy your product. So after a couple of days, Pinterest should have a pretty good idea. And from then, if you're not getting any add to carts, you probably already have the warmer audience, but they are still not buying because your offer is not good enough. So simply means that you need to improve your product page or your offer or something on the landing page to make them convert.
Interesting. And how many products or creatives are you usually testing a day, Thomas?
On average, because we usually test, we don't test new products every day, but more like, depending on what platform, every week or every 3 or 4 days. We test probably, if we include like everything that we do, probably a couple hundred products every week. So I would say like maybe 20 to 30 products every day. And there's different strategies as to how we test. So if I say a couple hundred products a week, we don't test every product in a single campaign and have new ads for every single product. But there's ways, depending on what platform, where you can just mass test products by just importing products onto your store and have either, for example, Pinterest, TikTok, or Google or Facebook test them automatically for you.
Yeah, one of the strategies we sort of tested was we would mass test sort of products on TikTok, where we'd just test creatives, and we wouldn't even have the product on our store. We just send it to the homepage, and only if within the first $5 we got like a good CTR and good cheap cost per clicks, then we'd go ahead and actually upload the product onto our store, build out the landing page, and then relaunch the campaign. So that was like an efficient process. The only downside was that sometimes when we would actually put in time to launch the product and upload it to our store, and we rerun that ad to the direct product landing page, we wouldn't get the same good results. So it was like a hit and miss with that strategy, but you were able to test way more and save a lot of time, but it wasn't that consistent. What have you found best when it comes to a testing process?
Yeah, so your approach, I think, is very effective. Like, we have a similar approach, or at least a similar mindset when it comes to testing. First, you want to validate your ads work, and then you want to put time, money, energy into making a product work. You're not going to put time into something where the ads don't convert anyways. Like, that's just not very effective. So yeah, our approach is pretty similar. Like, when it comes to TikTok, I think that algorithm is just really bad. So that's maybe why you're seeing those different results. But I have the same thing on Pinterest. Like, sometimes if I launch a product on one ad account and then launch the same product, same ads on a new ad account, the results are very, very different. I think it's too complex to really understand how those algorithms work. And I think sometimes the algorithms themselves don't even understand how they work. And therefore you just get very inconsistent results. Usually over time on Pinterest, it becomes more consistent. But on TikTok, what I've seen as well is a lot of the products, they do very well on the first day, and then it slowly dies out. So maybe in their algorithm, there's something where they just show your product to the warmest audience in general. So like the engaged shoppers. And from there, it just gets worse and worse, maybe. At least that's my theory. But of course, I don't understand too much about TikTok. But yeah, when it comes to testing, what we do is we sort of validate a product by just running the ads just putting very little time and effort into the product page. So we do have a product page, but it's just very, very fast and simple. And then as soon as we let it run for 3 days, like I said, that's when we're going to optimize the products and make sure they get purchases.
That's really smart. One thing I've noticed is with testing on TikTok, since you're letting things run for much longer, does it get more expensive? Let's say you're testing 5 creatives a day on TikTok, each is $5 a day, and that's running for 7 days. So by the 5th day, you might have 25 products running at the same time. You might only kill like 5, and the other one you're still waiting for more time to validate. So now you're spending 25 times 5 years, so you're spending $150 testing, and it just sort of gets more and more expensive. Is that a problem you go into?
On TikTok, it's different. Like we kill campaigns after 1 day if they're not profitable. But on Pinterest, I mean, we test with $5, and we're also testing on other accounts with like $3. So yeah, if you test like 20 or 25 products times 5, it's like 125 a day. It's not that expensive.
That's true.
That's same as you would be testing like 6, 7 products on TikTok.
That's fair.
So yeah.
I guess, and what's your thoughts between in today's market, and especially for Pinterest, general store versus niche stores versus one product sort of branded stores? What's your thoughts on the best sort of options nowadays, Thomas?
Also, this depends on the platform. It's funny because since from when I started dropshipping, people were already saying you need to have a one product store, you need to brand your store, you need to have a niche store. But when you go to AdSpy or any other spy tool, the products that are best selling and you go to their store looks absolutely crap. Mm-hmm. So I think it's more about the product and your creatives. That's like, if you rank all the factors that attribute to your success on your store, I think product is the biggest, and the second one is creative. And how your store looks, of what type of store you're using, it's far less important than what products you're selling and how you're selling them. So, but there is something else to keep in mind, of course, and that's like, you are putting your time, money, energy into something. And if you're just running a general store, you can sell a general dropshipping store, but not for as much as when you do a branded dropshipping store in one niche. So in my opinion, like, it doesn't really matter what type of store you use when it comes to conversion or what numbers you can do. But if you're going to spend that time anyways, might as well spend it on a branded dropshipping store so that you can eventually sell it as a brand. So that's sort of my take on it. But yeah, I've seen success, and for my students, I see people run really, really good with the general store, doing like 10K plus a day with just Pinterest ads on a general store. But then also people on a one product store or a niche store doing the same result. So I think the store doesn't really matter.
I think that's really true. And I think people talk about it's hard to find products, but like the other day I went on AliExpress and I was just scrolling through the homepage, and there's always new, interesting, crazy products on AliExpress. Are you more of an advocate of testing brand new, finding fresh winners, or looking for existing winners and sort of doing it better? Also
depends on where you are and what market you're selling in. If you're just starting out, if you're a complete beginner, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Like this, everyone tells you this, just look for products that are already selling. And that's simply the fastest way to get your business profitable. Yeah, make sure you start getting cash flow, start making profit, and do it by the easiest way, just copying successful products and improving them. And once you have something running, I think what a lot of dropshippers especially do is they get sort of stuck in dropshipping. So they just want more and more of the like typical dropshipping. So they doing 100K a month, they want to get to 1 million a month, which you can do with dropshipping. But I think you really have to think about, if you take that time, and usually these people, they work 12, 14 hours a day on their dropshipping business. If you take that time and you put it into, or at least a part of that time, and you put that energy into trying to find something new, trying to create a brand or develop a new product, eventually in the long run, that's going to bring you so much more. So if you're starting out, it's fine to just copy products to get cash flow, to make enough money to sustain a living, you know, to get that financial freedom, live the digital nomad life, whatever you want to do. But at some point, you want to switch part of that energy into creating something new. And even if you're dropshipping, like if you just, for example, if you are still dropshipping, test maybe 50% of your products of proven winners, and then the other 50% on trying to find something new. Because even in dropshipping, if you find a new product and no one else is selling that, or no one else is selling that in the market you're advertising in, you can really take off. So yeah, it's to some degree test proven winners, and then at some point you need to switch to new products as well.
That's very true. Now for Pinterest, when you test existing winners, do you recommend students or people to just take the existing creative from that winning ad, or do you like to sort of redo the ad during testing phase?
Yeah, to test, I'd say just copy. Just spend as little time as possible on it. This, like I said, for your previous question about what type of products, depends on the market. Because if you're selling in the US, you can still find proven sellers, or maybe older proven sellers, and sort of give that a new life by creating new creatives and maybe a little different version of that product. But with creative, I think goes the same. I think it's easier to just copy creatives to get results faster, to get that, get started. And that's probably going to make you the most or the fastest money. But if you want to make more money at some point, if you find a product that's proven to sell and you can create new content and you have the time, money, resources to create new content, then that can, same as like finding a new product, can take off again. You never see the same commercial on the television for longer than, let's say, a year. People need to see new things, and products that sold in 2018, they still sell. Only thing that changes is the creative. So if you can find a new creative for a proven product, then that can take off again. But you don't want to spend that time in the beginning, because it's just not as efficient as just copying something that, for example, is selling in Canada and you're taking it to the US. Like that's far more efficient than trying to find a product that's selling in the US and then create new content. And you have to go through all that, the entire process, and spend money on that. In the beginning, just copy, and then at some point spend time and money on finding new creatives.
That's smart. So I have two friends. One is hardcore TikTok ads, one is hardcore Facebook, and they've both scaled to like 30K days. And their strategy is like literally finding products from 2017, 2018, creating creatives with the TikTok style and running it on Facebook. Same with the TikTok, finding old Facebook winners and bringing it to TikTok with the TikTok style creative. And all of a sudden you're bringing life to these old saturated products, and even changing angles. I think that's something underrated. Like one of my friends, the stretchy lid dropshipping product?
Yeah.
He literally just changed the angle and marketed it as like a environmentally friendly sort of product. And all of a sudden he did a ton of money just by re-angling it. So you're totally right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you see this on TikTok a lot. You see a lot of old winners with new content taking off again. Also, maybe because it's a new platform and you reach an audience that wasn't on Facebook when most people were selling these kinds of products on Facebook. So now you reach a new audience and it's new for people. But yeah, just having a new creative, you can sell a lot of the same products. And a lot of products even sell like year round.
Most definitely. Now that recycling process of sort of going back to what was trendy several years ago and sort of looking at that cyclic nature, is that something that could apply with Pinterest? Or is Pinterest in a world of its own? Because when I scroll through Pinterest and then look at all the sponsored ads, they're completely different styled ads and products compared to Facebook and TikTok. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm in Australia, my ads might be different, but what's your thoughts on sort of recycling old winners? Can it work on Pinterest? Is there a different strategy for Pinterest?
I would say on Pinterest, you have different products that sell well. Of course, you have products that sell well on TikTok, Facebook, and Pinterest, but for every platform, there are products that perform better on that specific platform. Same with Pinterest, but just recycling old products is a very good way to find a new winner on Pinterest, as it is on any platform. So, what you just have to keep in mind on Pinterest specifically is that the audience is a lot smaller. So compared to TikTok and Facebook, the audience, it's a lot smaller and not all people are on there. Like on Facebook and TikTok, almost all people are on there. And when I say all people, I mean people with different interests. On Pinterest, there are a couple niches that simply perform better than other niches. And for example, if you're going to test, let's say gadgets on Pinterest, it's probably not going to perform as well as on Facebook or TikTok. You maybe find a good gadget that's interesting for a very broad audience, then of course it can perform well on Pinterest. But if it's something very niche, like let's say when I was advertising on Facebook in 2019, I was selling products for people that are fishing, like the sport fishing. You're probably not going to sell a lot of those products on Pinterest because that audience on Pinterest is just very, very small. So you want to keep it a little bit more broad and focus on the niches that are more popular on Pinterest, like home decor, DIY, fashion, beauty products, those kinds of products.
Now, what's the best way to do sort of product research for Pinterest? Because I know the scrolling method, finding ads, click on an add to cart, checkout. What happens if you're like in Europe or in Australia? Can using a VPN and changing it to USA, would that get you USA ads? Or what's the best way to get USA sponsored ads? Or is that even needed?
It's definitely a very good strategy to copy products from one market and taking it to another market. I think that's one of the easiest and most successful methods to find a proven winner that works for you. Yeah, using a VPN. The thing with the strategy, so for the people that don't know this, like you go onto Pinterest on your own personal profile and just engage with the ads, which results in you getting to see more ads, and you can check those ads if they're selling well for the competitor, and then you find a proven seller. But the thing on Pinterest, if you do this, you'll get to see a lot of the same ads. Maybe you've seen this as well. You get a lot of the same products. So what we do is we create a lot of different Pinterest profiles, all with a different avatar. So we create a profile for a woman in the US interested in fashion, woman in Europe interested in beauty, like all these different profiles. So we get to see all these different products selling well in all these different niches. And yeah, just by using a VPN, you get to see ads in different countries. Then it's just validating if that ad sell, taking it to a new market, or try to compete with it in the same market sometimes also works. For example, taking a product from Canada and it's not selling that in the US, it's very likely, if that's very successful in Canada, it's also going to be very successful in the US.
Now, how do you know that product so you turn on the Canada VPN? Oh, by the way, each one of these profiles, do you stick to one country, or can that fashion profile, you can turn on the US VPN and get US fashion ads, turn on the Canada VPN and get Canadian fashion ads, or do you have to have different profiles for that?
I mean, it works if you just change the location of the VPN, but I think it works better if you just stick to one because then people that are targeting only the US, you get to see more of those. And a lot of people are targeting worldwide, so.
Makes sense. What VPN do you recommend people to use for that strategy, Thomas?
I just use ExpressVPN. That's I haven't tested different VPNs. It's just I bought this a long time ago and works for me. So, and for the people that don't want to go through all this, like scrolling through your feed, you can also use Pinspy. It's our software to find Pinterest ads. So you can, it's same like AdSpy. For the people that don't know AdSpy, it's for Facebook. We have a tool that does the same for Pinterest. So,
tell me about Pinspy. How long have you sort of had that running? What inspired you to put it together? And then how long did it take for you to build that software?
I think we started last year in around Q2, I'd say. So it took a while before the software was finished. We launched it this year. And still it's like beta version. So it's not completely finished. We're still looking for ways to get more data. We're talking to Pinterest and always trying to improve it, but there's definitely a lot of data in there already. I think there's like over 7,000 pages of ads, and every page has like 16 or 24 ads. So there's a lot of data in there, which gives you a very clear idea of what is working on Pinterest and what niches are working well on Pinterest. And yeah, it's same like AdSpy. And when I started the software, there was no software like this. There's still almost no competitors for this. And the thing with our software is that right now it's just very cheap. Like for AdSpy, for example, you pay like $150, I think, every month, which is definitely worth it. I've gotten like many winners from AdSpy, but I think $150 for beginner can be quite a lot. So I just want to price it really cheap and really build a tool that's just going to help beginners specifically. Because if you're more advanced, like I said, you can still test those proven winners, but you also want to focus on building something new. So that tool maybe is not the only thing that you want to use. But for beginners, like I said, it's the fastest way to just look for things that are already working. And I want to make that accessible for everyone. So yeah, that's how we came up with Pinspy.
That's an amazing vision. And a lot of these sort of spy websites like Ecom Hunt, Dropship Spies, Ad Spies, do they have just a bunch of virtual assistants scrolling and copying and pasting the ads onto their platform or downloading it? Or is it all done through the API and it's connected to Facebook? Well, I don't think Facebook gives you that much data. Is it all manual work?
No. I don't know for websites like Ecom Hunt, they probably also have something automated. I don't know, like I think Ecom Hunt doesn't post too many new products every day. So maybe that's manual. But for AdSpy, for example, that's definitely with API. So you have some type of scraper that scrapes ads from the platform. And this can be done in a couple different ways. But yeah, you just have some type of scraper that goes through the feed and finds products. And yeah, that gets sent to our software.
That's super cool. And when you're sort of scrolling through Pinterest and looking for products that are running, what's the best way to see if this is a new ad that only ran for a day and it's not worth testing because it hasn't been validated versus, this is a Pinterest ad that's been running for 2 weeks, so you know it's a winner and it's making money and I should test this?
If it's been running for 2 weeks, that's still relatively new. Like these spy tools, you can use them in different ways. You can like go back to like, let's say 2019 to see what was working back then. If you test those products, there's still a very high chance it's going to work for you. Like, because I've been doing Pinterest for 2 years now, I've seen products come back every year. So what was selling in summer last year, it's also selling in summer this year. And that's not just on Pinterest, that's on most platforms. That's what I've been seeing since I started dropshipping. But yeah, you can use it in different ways. You can also look for the past few days and see if you can find new products. The thing is, if you do that, for me, I probably recognize a new product because I've been doing product research for almost 4 years now. So I know a lot of products already. Not every product, so I still sometimes find a product that maybe already is more saturated, but I think it's new. But for me, it's a lot easier to spot new products because I know most products. So that's a little bit harder, but still, I think looking at the past couple days and see in those past couple days which ads started to take off, it's a very good method to find more of those newer products.
So I haven't been on Pinterest too much lately, and I think maybe because I have ad blocker on as well. But with the sponsored posts, if you just manually go through Pinterest.com, do they show the date that ad was created, or do they show engagement, or is it? Oh,
you can't see any of this.
Yeah.
You can't even see like how many times it's repinned. You really have to go into the data, and we can scrape this, but for a normal user, you can't see this.
wow. So that means as a normal user, how do you know which sponsored product is worth copying and testing and putting money towards?
Yeah, so I actually put together a cheat sheet this week that explains like this entire process. Literally. So basically what you do, you go through the feed, find the ad, go to the website, and then there's several tools that can validate if a product is selling well. If it's a Shopify store, it's relatively easy because you have sales trackers. So they literally track the sales. It's not 100% accurate, but it definitely gives you an indication. If you see the sales tracker just showing every hour a product is bought, or maybe like every 10 minutes a product is bought, that's a very good indication that product is working really well for them. So using tools like that. So for example, a tool called Ali Hunter or PP Spy, it's like one of those live sales trackers. And then even if you don't use that, by using like Commerce Inspector or Koala Inspector, it's like these Shopify analysis Chrome extensions, and they just show you the best sellers. You can even find the best sellers of a store without using that if they haven't blocked it. And then using SimilarWeb to just see how much traffic they're getting, see what their bestseller is. That also gives you an indication of how well it's performing. And you can even see in SimilarWeb where this traffic is coming from. So you can validate if the traffic is coming from Pinterest, the product that they're advertising is one of their bestsellers. That means that product is working well for them.
Interesting. And then that's really smart. Now, how about country-wise? Is there a strategy to know, hey, this product has been tested in Canada, hasn't been tested in US yet, let me go ahead and copy this and test it in the United States, and vice versa? How do you know, like, what if they already advertise on both countries?
Yeah, so this is really a little bit harder. There's no tool to see where a product is being advertised. Well, in Pinspy, you can select on countries, so we can see where a ad is shown. But for you to figure out if a product is already selling in your market, you really have to do your manual research. So you really have to get onto Pinterest and search for competitors, or go to Google, search for competitors. There's no quick fix to see in what markets something is saturated.
Got it.
So I'm probably
unfortunately.
Yeah, and maybe with Pinspy, eventually you can figure that out, because that's probably a problem people need solved. I'm guessing when you're sort of doing product research, you're probably using USA IP and VPN. So you're scrolling through a bunch of US products. Does that mean you'll sort of copy this for the testing phase and run it straight to Canada, and you don't use USA during testing phase? Or what countries do you like to target during testing phase, Thomas?
We test in Europe and in the US mostly, and then I personally sell mostly in the US, and then expand to like Canada, Australia, and maybe at some point even worldwide. But I always start in the US, and if I sell in Europe, I mostly sell in Western countries like Germany, Netherlands, France, Scandinavia, the more rich countries. And yeah, it doesn't really matter what market you're selling in. If you just copy something from a market and then bring it to a new market, it's almost always a good way to find a new product. Of course, not for every product. Some products are selling in the US and not selling in Europe simply because the audience is different. But usually, if it's a very broad product, it works good in all markets.
Got it. What would your advice be for like a beginner trying to get that initial traction? Would it be copy, like go and turn on a US VPN, find some winning products, check Commerce Inspector, that product's getting a lot of sales. Should they go ahead and launch that product on USA as well? Or should they try a different country? What's a safer, beginner-friendly method?
Yeah, so every market has its pros and cons. If you're a complete beginner, I would start in Europe because it's just easier to sell. Europe is a lot easier. If you test, let's say, 30 products, from those 30 products, you find more winners in Europe because there's less competition. Even here is quite a lot of competition, but compared to the US, it's a lot less. So yeah, you're probably gonna spend less money to be profitable in Europe compared to the US. US, I always view it as something that you need to be a little bit more advanced for. Just need to put more effort into your products, into your pages. And I have a couple case studies on my YouTube channel where I do sell in the US. But in those case studies, you can already see that I'm sort of putting more effort into the product compared to Europe. For example, in Europe, you can just copy a product, copy literally everything, of course, translate it and just run the ad and it's profitable. And you don't even have to change anything.
Wow. Do you translate it to that country's local language? Is that what you mean by translate?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you're going to sell in Europe, make sure to sell in their native language. It just converts a lot better.
And then does that mean you're also changing the landing page language, or does the landing page still stay in English?
Yeah. Everything's in the native language, especially the landing page. You can use like English ads, but it's always better to have, like, for example, if you're selling in Germany, have a German website.
Wow. So as a beginner, let's say there's Germany, Scandinavia, Norway, Italy. Is England counted or is England not counted? Do you do England or not really?
Like UK is sort of between the US and Europe. There's more competition because people that target the US often also target UK. So there's a little bit more competition, but less competition than US, and more competition in Europe.
Wow. So those like 5 European countries you mentioned earlier, Thomas, does that mean like you have 5 websites for those 5 different countries in those 5 different languages?
Yeah.
Wow. So as a beginner, what is one, like if like let's say a beginner, they can't afford 5 Shopify stores, they only will have one. What language or country do you recommend their first Shopify store to be in?
I'd say it depends where you're from. So if you're in Europe, just target your own country because the whole process of understanding like how to look for products, basically how to run your business, is a lot easier if you do it in your own language. Also because you want to create your own product pages, you don't want to outsource a lot of things, you want to save money. So just do it in your own language. For people that already maybe have cash flow and are looking to expand to a new country, there's pros and cons again to every country here. So Scandinavia is very rich, but last year's the competition has definitely gone up a lot there. Germany is the biggest European market, but Germany, a lot of people pay with PayPal and Klarna, which are a pain in the ass for your payment processing. Netherlands is a little bit smaller, but payment processing goes mostly through Ideal, and that's depending on what process you use, instant payouts or next day payouts. So that's very good for your cash flow. France market is also pretty good for cash flow, but converts a little bit less because it's just a different market. So yeah, there's pros and cons, but every market I just mentioned can work really well.
Okay, so a lot of our audience are from Australia, Canada, US, and they probably only use like Stripe or Shopify payments, and a lot of them are beginners. What do you recommend them? Because they don't live in Europe, they don't know how to, write in those European languages, and they're not that good to get creative payment gateways. How would you recommend them to start on Europe?
So you can translate it relatively easy by using DeepL. It's just a translation tool. It's like Google Translate. So that's not too hard. You just do everything you would do in English, but everything gets translated. That's the only difference. Only problem is that you have to deal with the payments. So you have to figure out a way to get, for example, if you're in the US, you already have Klarna in the US. Maybe in Australia, I have no idea. If not, you have to get some type of European business or business number to get Klarna. So that's like, it's not impossible, because I know a lot of guys that live in Dubai, for example, and they have residence in Dubai, but they're still using Klarna and PayPal and all the necessary payment methods. So there's always a way. It's just a challenge to figure out how to make that work. So yeah, and that's basically the only challenge, and then translating it. But you can just do everything in English and then translate it and then run your ads.
That's awesome. Another topic that's really important, scaling. Is Pinterest as easy as just upping your budget, doubling it every 3-4 days if it's getting results? Or do you like duplicating like Facebook, where you duplicate the sort of ad groups or campaign? What's the best way to scale on Pinterest?
Yeah, Pinterest, you have to be very, very careful, because this is where the problem most people run into. Like scaling on Pinterest it's very tricky, and it's different even for every ad account, which is also something I've seen on Facebook and TikTok. But yeah, you have to be careful. You have to scale slowly. So Pinterest is really long-term, slowly and consistent. And even with scaling, you want to scale slowly so you don't ruin your campaigns. If you have a campaign running on $5 and you scale this, so one of the methods I use is go from $5 to $20, which is still a low budget, but that can already make a very big difference, and you can already sort of have ruined your campaign, at least for the first couple days. But if you have to understand that it can take a couple days again to optimize. So in general, it's just very slow, and there's not a lot of products, especially now that there's more competition. It's still not a lot of people use Pinterest, but there's a little bit more competition. It's just harder to find these really big winning products. So you'll have a lot of smaller products on a low budget, but like the more products you have on a lower budget, of course, that's also going to add up. And there are some products that you can scale fast. So for example, another method I use is just go from duplicate the entire campaign from $5 to $50. And by duplicating, you don't reset the algorithm. So this is also something you have to keep in mind. Not every change that you make, but some changes you make resets the algorithm and resets the optimization. So you're basically back at zero. And these are all things that you have to keep in mind when scaling on Pinterest. In general, if you just want to be safe, just scale with, let's say, 20% maximum a day.
Oh, wow.
That's a very safe way to go. If you scale over 49%, in 48 hours, that's going to reset the algorithm. So if you keep that in mind, then you're safe.
Interesting. That's still surprising. I thought you'd be increasing the budget every 3 or 4 days. So you'd be doing it every day.
No. I don't do it every day. Like I do it mostly just once a week. But you can scale slowly every day as long as you're not going over that 49%. But it's not ideal, but it's just one rule to stick to make sure you're playing it safe. You can scale faster, for example, by duplicating, but there's more risk, and it's not recommended for a beginner and definitely not recommended for every product. So you really only do this for products that are really, really big winners.
When you're doing the once a week method, you're increasing it from 5 to 20, does that reset the algorithm or?
Yeah, so that resets it. So that's a method that we do only for products that are doing well. And then when it's doing well on 20, then we can start creating CPA campaigns, for example. So it's sort of a test to see if it works on a higher budget. It's sort of a validation. We also sometimes scale from 5 to 7 to 10 to 14 to 20 very slowly. Depends on the results of the product.
That's really cool, because I know on TikTok, one of the things that helps people scale to like 30K days is surfing, where if you're getting good results that morning, you'll just increase the budget from 50 to like $2,000 a day. And you'll start getting really, really good results, because I think the algorithm, it's sort of like when you're just scrolling through TikTok on your own. If there's like a viral content, everyone in your whole neighborhood sees it and it performs really well, and then the next day it just disappears. So I feel like the TikTok algorithm is similar when you're running ads, where one day could just be hot and you could just get a ton of super high ROI, and you want to go ahead and just max out your budget, and the next day you want to bring it back to 50. Oh, talking about that, Pinterest, do you ever bring the budget back down?
Yeah, like we have in my own business, I have to run ROAS 3. It's sort of our minimum. Not because we're not profitable if we have a lower ROAS, but it's sort of our average minimum that we want to stay above. And if it's below ROAS 3, I just scale back, and I do this all the time. So that's also like managing your campaigns to make sure your profit is high. And of course, for some products, if the break-even ROAS is a lot lower, then it doesn't matter if the ROAS on our campaign is a little bit lower, and the other way as well. But on average, I just have like a ROAS I want to stay above, and if it's below that, I just scale back.
What's the minimum wait time? So for Facebook, I'd always wait for at least 4 days before I make a decision to either bring the budget down or bring the budget up. Is there like a wait period for Pinterest before you make a decision, like bring the budget back down?
Usually 3 days minimum. So if you make a change, wait for at least 3 days. Yeah.
Got it. Have you tried retargeting or lookalike audiences on Pinterest, Thomas?
Yeah. So not too much. Well, lookalike audiences, we always use it. Retargeting, we always use it, but I don't focus on this a lot, because in Pinterest, there's automated retargeting already. And you've maybe seen this if you go through your feed, you visit the product, you get to see that product a lot of times. So Pinterest also sort of automatically retargets their customers, because the user behavior in Pinterest is a lot like people will save a pin, get back to it later. So that's why they automatically retargeted customers already. But we still create retargeting campaigns, which sometimes work well, sometimes it doesn't. In my experience, it just depends on the product. Some products are fit for retargeting, some products not. I'm not sure like what the reason is, or maybe the retargeting ads are just not converting. And then lookalikes, we just add them to our campaigns and sort of test it as if it's a different interest.
Got it. And do you like to keep all your do you like to do many ad groups and keep all your products in one campaign? Or do you like having many campaigns for the same product if it's a winner?
In general, keep it as simple as possible. Especially when you're testing, you don't want to touch the campaign a lot. Of course, if something's not working, you can try adding or removing interests and maybe try creating a new campaign for specific interests. But in general, I first focus on optimizing the product page and making sure it converts. I let Pinterest optimize the campaigns. In the meanwhile, I optimize the conversion rate. And that's sort of the way to go in Pinterest, in my opinion. And once something works, that's when we start creating more campaigns, start testing more ad groups to find new audience that we can sell to. And that's when the entire process of like optimizing starts, but only when we have found a consistent, profitable product.
That's beautiful, Thomas. Thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find more about sort of what you do? Tell us about your YouTube channel, and where can people find more about your sort of the spy site? Yeah.
I'm on all platforms. So YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel. It's just my name, Thomas Mulder. Instagram, Thomas Mulder without an E. And on TikTok, it's Thomas Mulderful. And I recently started TikTok as well. It's crazy. Like the organic TikTok is also very interesting, even for dropshippers. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
That's beautiful.
And of course, I have my website as well, thomasmulder.com.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love how you've been really, like I could tell you've been in e-com for the last 4 years and you sort of stuck with it. You haven't really jumped around. Usually a lot of these e-com people by year 2, they're sort of jumping onto the next thing. So you've been really focused on it, and I can tell that's sort of why you're so knowledgeable in this space, and you definitely know what you're doing in Pinterest, and I can definitely sense that from you over the camera.
Yeah, I've tried different things in the meantime as well, but e-commerce always there. Yeah.
Most definitely. Thank you so much for your time today. So yeah, that's another episode of the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys made it this far, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I'll see you guys next week with another episode. Peace.